Steph Aldridge isn't just a bundle of unreasonable energy, which of course she is, but she's also a compassionate and enthusiastic human being that you will find at the center of things that matter. Steph is always at the beginning of great things, whether it's related to neurodiversity or related to cybersecurity or just building relationships between the two. You'll be able to find Steph there, and I'm excited for you to get a chance to learn some more about the things that she does. So Steph, I'm going to talk to you today about a whole bunch of different things because you are like my little gold star and tick so many boxes of things that I'm interested in and that this podcast is focused on. But I guess to begin, let's start with neurocyber, because I know that that's something that's important to you. Tell us, what is it? How'd you get involved in it? Where's it going?
So neurocyber was sort of set up after an event we ran when I was still working at the Challenge, and I ran the kids activity track. We did it at Shrivenham. It was called the Neurodiversity Autism into Cyber event. And when the networks got hold of it, we had busloads of kids turning up, and some of the teachers were laughing, saying, well, MOD it might be, but they didn't want to get on the bus and count all the heads. Right? They just let the kids come in. It was brilliant. And we had 3 sets of activities. The first activity was run by NCC, and it was sort of, they probably won't want me to say it, but it was a sort of hack this website and change something up here.
Yeah.
And we had 2 13-year-old boys who managed to do this 30-minute activity in 120 seconds.
No.
13-year-old lads, right, wearing hats, sunglasses and ear defenders.
What buzz that must have been, though, to see it happen that fast. Like.
Crazy. The second activity, when we shifted them round, was run by GCHQ, and it was a picture of a Lamborghini, yellow Lamborghini, and the question was, find out as much information as you can about this car. Well, the second lot that turned up were done in 4 minutes. They're like this. Yeah, we're How have you finished? We just copied all the cookies from the last set of searches.
I love it. Out of the box thinking, like, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm sort of, loitering around the food area where the mums, the teachers, the supporters were. And really, for the second event we ran, we realised quite quickly that these people are your champions.
Yeah.
They're the ones really that should have been sitting in the business track, listening to how the cyber industry, GCHQ, NCA, all of those people have ERGs specifically for autistic people, and how it supports parents first. The parents go to those groups first within a company because, they've had a baby, and now the 3-year-old has been diagnosed, all of this. So this is what an ERG gives a company. And I really wish we'd had them in there. But at one point, I had one lady come over to me. She said, oh, my God, look at my son, look at my son. It's like 2 lads in school uniform with their mobiles out. I'm thinking, and she said he swapped groups to be with that boy. She said, he's 16. They're swapping numbers. I've never seen him do this before. Wow. He doesn't have any friends. And I thought, how do you be the parent of a 16-year-old kid who doesn't have any friends?
You're their only social contact then, surely? Right? That's tough. Right.
So, yeah. And I have seen, and the beauty of neurocyber and the beauty of the work that Cybersecurity Challenge were doing in those days was it was bringing people of all backgrounds together in face-to-face competitions after playing online rounds, who would then meet each other after seeing a leaderboard.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, you're so-and-so and you're so-and-so, and I was with Cybersecurity Challenge for about 8 years. And towards the end of that, I ended up being at this big competition that was being run. And I'm sitting there and somebody turned around and said something. And I was like, oh, I'm Steph. and they were like, what, Steph that run the Cyber Centurion competition? And I was like, well, yeah.
Yes, of
And
course.
it went round like wildfire. I was a thing because I'd managed every weekend. I was on Twitter, I'm helping the students, I'm on the phone, I'm doing all of this stuff. And every kid in that room knew who I was. And for a split second, I was like, this is what it
I
is.
have made it.
This is what it's like to be a pen tester, this rock star sort of.
Yeah.
I had no interest in doing presentations, did all of that sort of stuff, but I had to do it as part of the competition.
Yeah.
So, and that for me, that sort of rewind back to that day, I remember thinking, I have like a 13, 15, however old Bailey was at the time. And I was just
Yeah.
thinking, what a nightmare. Anyway, so, and I've seen time and time again kids who are considered autistic, clearly are, dropped off by parents at these competitions. Parents are freaked out of their bones because they're like, I don't want him to be picked on, ignored, disliked, rude, all of that. Don't worry, it's fine. And then watching these kids as part of a team, as the other kids work out how much faster and more technical some of these autistic kids were. And then that feedback happening. And then getting into a lift with somebody I was told was a very shy autistic chap.
Yeah.
Laughing and joking, taking the mick out of himself, cracking jokes like a top quality middle-aged dad. Just brilliant. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And I thought, it's true. All the stuff Holly had told me up until that point is true. It is untrue that an autistic person can't present. It is untrue that an autistic person can't communicate, couldn't be a consultant, couldn't work out how to write it's all
That
rubbish.
Holly Foxcroft.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
It's
brilliant.
all rubbish. It's about special interests, it's about engaging, and it's about being aware enough in yourself as a person to be okay with dealing with people who make you feel slightly uncomfortable because they don't do things the way you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think part of getting older and being neurodivergent, even though I can do eye contact and all of those things, for me means that if somebody walks up to me sideways and sort of looks at my chin, I won't make them look at my eyes. I will talk to their ear, or
Yeah.
I'll look straight past them and I'll answer them and ask them what they need. And I do that with kids at the college now and stuff like that. There's a reason why somebody's not looking at you.
I always think that neurodivergents are like magnets, like they'll find each other. And I didn't know, like I was talking to a lady earlier today and I was saying to her, my mum used to always say, Jenny, you always bring home the lame ducks. And I was always mortally wounded by this because my
Yes.
friends to me were the coolest friends ever. And she was like, they've always got something that's a bit odd. Now, my mother's been well schooled in it all since then. But when I look back at it now, I go, they're all neurodivergent. We didn't know it then. They're all
Yeah.
various flavors and such. We didn't know it then. But
Yeah.
now that we do, I realize that as somebody who felt different or left out or on the outside of conversations or things that were going on, I've learned as an adult, I can't read between the
Yes.
lines. Didn't know that was a problem. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being around people who also had that sort of level of awkwardness made me feel so like, oh, thank God I don't have to pretend like I've got all my crap together because they don't have their crap together. So we can all not have our crap together.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think, and so sort of off the back of that event and the sort of feedback that we did, and I went round and I created questionnaires and I got the survey and I wrote up the report, and made sure everybody got it. So my special interest at that point was autism.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And I kind of didn't know why, but there was a sense of injustice. There was a
Yes.
sense of, if the industry needs to have more skilled people in it, then, where are they hiding? Where are they hiding? How can we get them in? And so it became a thing. Neurodivergence, specifically autism in the early days, was really sort of thinking about the future skills. So when Mike, the CEO of Neurocyber, set it up, I mean, I was there. I'm doing minutes, I'm doing notes, I'm chasing everyone. This is what we're going to do, all of this sort of stuff. This is how we're going to do it. This is why we're doing it. Setting up a second event, all of that kind of stuff, and chasing down and inviting. So learning from the mistakes. And now I'm running sort of workshops at the second event. We've got some great speakers, cabinet office. I can tell you what I do for a living, Steph, but then I'd have to kill you. Those kind of people. Love them. My favorite. Having all of these chats, listening to parents of in cyber with neurodivergent children saying, I've got neurodivergent kids that I now look after as part of this club that I formed because I was overqualified in my local area. So I just set up this club. These kids are being sent out of school because they can't cope. They're coming to us sort of shut down. And then after we just ignore them for a few weeks. There's computer stuff, trash everywhere. Bit by bit, they'll start building. And we've got to a point now, is this guy's experience, that we are having kids that are 16, 17, 18 doing apprenticeships at the Big Four.
No way.
Right?
It makes sense, but also, wow. Yeah.
That don't want people, that don't want the term autistic or neurodivergent. And I think that's kind of where we're going. It's kind of where we're going. Where we want to be is in a situation where, I'm not talking about, floating around and levitating and accepting everything that sort of comes our way, but I kind of am, in the sense that a company's looking for people. It has to be focused on the skills. And you get that set of skills on board. And if that person's missing a few skills, then, it should all really be skills based.
Yeah.
But if that person doesn't want to talk to you or needs to play Candy Crush for 15 minutes every 2 hours at exactly 1/4 to that hour, but their output is amazing and they're doing the job, what do you need to succeed in this company?
Yeah.
Right.
And unless what you need involves breaking any laws, like murder or anything like that, there's really, most of the things that people need are things that you would accommodate in a heartbeat for somebody if you didn't think they were different from you. So why are we thinking hard about accommodating those things just because somebody is different to you? Because if my, neurotypical sister was in work and she said, look, this office is really noisy. Can I wear noise cancelling earphones because I can't get my work done? They'd go, yeah, grand, crack on. But somebody who's neurodivergent has to specifically ask for it under the needs of their disability as an accommodation, or at least they will often feel that way.
Yeah.
Where it should be just said and done that you want to wear headphones, go ahead and wear headphones. As long as they're not leaking music that's annoying everyone else, go for it.
Exactly. It feels like a lot of common sense is kind of thrown out the window because people go into blind panic. And I think we've got a set of people who have all the best aims for doing the sort of resourcing and onboarding and daily life and, getting people, keeping people happy all the way through to any kind of promotion, learning, and into, and when you part ways, you part ways. But what does that look like for the average person, and how flexible are you so that people can do what they need? And I know people sort of, grumble, so-and-so's always working from home, or, the last company I worked for, there was one software developer that was working from his boat in the middle of the Med.
But was he getting the work done, Steph?
He must have been. Otherwise, somebody would have said something about it. I mean, it was way above my pay grade, but I just thought, I'd love to be that software developer.
I'm like, who cares where you're working from or what hours you're working? If the stuff is if the expectation of your role is being achieved. And in many cases, I find that certainly as a leader, that if you give people the room to do the things within a way they find supports their needs best, then they don't just succeed, but they excel. And I know as a neurodivergent, given that tiny little bit of breathing room, I would get it so rarely that when I do get it, I was so utterly grateful for it that I'm like, and can I do this? And can I do that? And I can do this as well.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's why you
everywhere.
should do it, but it tends to be that, when people get an opportunity to feel comfortable, feel relaxed, and feel accepted, then all of the energy that they're pumping into trying to be
Get it
socially
right.
normal, like, yes, then they can put into actually doing great other things that are exceptional. So,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer really when you think out loud about it.
And it is, it's rookie move. I mean, you coined that term, and I thought, yeah, that's a perfect term for companies who need a way of sort of trying to control this stuff.
Yeah.
And Amazon wants everybody in 5 days a week, beginning of, January 2025. And what I don't even know what that says about them.
Mm,
All I know is that I don't want to work there.
yeah.
I've got, avoid it like the plague. And and currently what the world is looking at is this kind of tightening of our borders. So there's
Yeah.
there's less migration, and actually what we've got is just whoever's left within the country in order to find out, do you have a skill set, do you want to work in cyber? And we're competing now, we're competing internally within our own. It's same as happening across the sort of ponds there in the States. And so if we can't engage the sort of 84% of neurodivergent people who are currently out of work,
Mm,
then they're a drain on the system in the fact that they are sort of taking
not
some
working,
money
like,
in
yeah.
order to survive, but yet because of some social scenarios, sensory issues, they can't do stuff the way a lot of the processes are set up to process
Yeah.
humans. The world's kind of losing out in both ways, really.
I think what we're going to see, and I think I see movement in that direction. There's more recruitment companies and recruiters starting to go kind of, hang on, there might be something in this. So we're actually seeing neurodiverse specific, the irony
Yeah,
of
yeah,
even that statement, recruitment companies being set up. And I think the risk then, if you're talking about, let's say, you know, a, a country as an island that wants to employ all of their people within the local
yeah,
remit, those people are going to work for global companies wherever else in the world that value them, as opposed to them being somebody they have to take on board because they're who's available within that physical remit.
yeah,
I mean, I like to go into the office from time to time, but at the same time, I like to choose when to do it, because if we go in a specific day every week, there's some weeks where that's just not happening. And I get nothing done because I'm distracted by everything in the entire office.
yeah.
Whereas if I'm at home, I might well go, I'll get up and I started running again. So I'll get up and I'll run early, and I'm going to start. My first call is at 8. And then I could still be working away at 8 o'clock in the evening, happily locked into something, because I can just do it, and I
Yeah.
can do extra hours, or I can take a longer lunch. But the stuff gets done. I'm much more relaxed, and I have no problem doing that. Whereas, yeah, I'm not anti the office. I can see benefits to
No,
it, but I think I'm pro choice about how you want to do it,
yeah,
whatever works for people.
exactly. And I think actually a lot of young people currently, post COVID and the anxieties and social media and all of the outside sensory that has been thrown in the eyes and ears
Yeah,
of our kids, with the technology that they have access to all the time on a mobile phone. Actually going into an office and learning by osmosis, because you're hearing things, because so and so can show you quickly, and because you're young and you want to connect with other
yeah,
people and start, it's like my daughter, she loves going into the office. She loves hanging out with her friends. She loves going for drinks, spending too much money on sort of beers and all of that sort of stuff. Loves it,
yeah,
right? But she's building her life. I kind of like the other sort of side of that, in the sense that I still want to be of use.
Yeah.
and to have some sort of interesting outlet for doing this work, which is what neurocyber gives me. And it's the real reason I think the branding's great.
Yeah.
So, and people know it. And that's kind of why I stay involved with neurocyber, and after fintech, I was in fintech for 5 years, and I could go, oh, but I'm the director of neurocyber, whatever that means, and just sort of pick that back up. And now I'm back in cyber,
Hello.
doing stuff, trying to help. So there's an ownership. There's somewhere for me to belong
Yeah.
in cyber through neurocyber, and I think that's what most people are looking for, somewhere to belong.
Yeah.
If you belong somewhere, then you've got value. If you've got value, then you've got some outputs, people care, and that's why we have to get better as an industry about including people who don't normally feel included,
Yes.
but could showcase an amazing skill set if given half the chance.
Yeah.
And the loyalty that comes out of that, similar to apprenticeships. Apprenticeships build sort of loyalty because the kids, I'm not academic, but you're giving them access to jobs, and they're still going to college or uni eventually, and they're so grateful that
Yeah.
they're getting paid and they're growing up. That's the process. And so you want your kids to be happy. I
Yes.
want my daughter to be happy, and they can't. They're with us forever, Jen.
Certainly now with the way the housing market and all is, yes.
Yeah. So until they've got a career, their next playground is the career.
Yeah.
So until they've got a career where they are energized, they are learning stuff, they are coaching, mentoring, because, it really interests them, and they feel like they've got something to give because they've learned something that maybe other people don't know yet.
Yeah.
They're part of a community.
Yeah.
And since my daughter got into fintech and does her, card operations, and amazing. I mean, I listen to her on some of the calls. She's way more professional than I will ever be.
I don't know if I'm ready for them to be that grown up. Many of mine are adults, but none of mine have shown any interest whatsoever in
No, they
working
don't.
anything tech. I'm like,
They don't. They don't. And my daughter was the same. No, I'm doing geology. I like the outdoors. I'm never going to be stuck to a computer. Da 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 da.
no way.
And then lands this job and is like, is that really how it works? And she's a mad woman for it. She's mad for it. And yeah, what she's learned, how she's learned it, the fact she belongs in that company, even necessarily, I think she's got to the point now that even if she wasn't with that company, she has a career, she has an
Yes.
industry that she's part of. So
Mm-hmm.
these are all the places in which we exist.
Yeah.
And if you can't belong somewhere, I think you're kind of in some sort of trouble mental health wise. I don't think it helps. I don't think that stuff helps.
No.
So,
And they do say a lot of places, like, we talk about DEI, but we don't talk about DEIB enough. And the B is one of the most important parts of that, with your belonging part of it, because none of the rest of it falls into place if you don't feel like you belong somewhere, or that you have somewhere anywhere that you belong to. And I know I could relate to that. Yeah. People just refer to it as DEI, and I have done that a lot. I referred to it as DEI till a woman stopped me once, and she was like, DEIB, and I was like, B? And she goes, belonging. She said it's the most part, or the most important part. She goes, all the rest of it doesn't matter if you can't do the belonging part, especially when it comes to a workplace. So DEIB. So outside of neurocyber, then you strike me as the kind of person that would have other pet projects. What else are you involved in?
So I am currently co-director with Nigel Jones and John Madeline. I mean, I have no idea how I get to hang out with these amazing people, as part of CSE Connect, which is an NCSC funded or sponsored group of academics
Mm-hmm.
who are part of the academic centres of excellence. And clearly I'm trying to get them to add all the other universities currently. So we're running a sort of international business outreach piece, and part of that, the part of that Nigel set up was having lots of American academics over
Yeah.
from the US and showing them around the UK, the environments, the academic environments, NCSC, our chapters, all of the different places, and you and I are now on the DE&I B group for that. Which is loads of fun. And, actually your input's great. Your input's great. Every time Jen opens her mouth, she just sort of says everything that everyone does that with. And I'm like, thank God, can we move on to the next agenda point now, please?
And I think being in a group like that, so these SIGs, these special interest groups, are important in many different ways. But I think being in a group like that, for me, I'm sort of representing the WESIS side of things to the
Yes,
women in cybersecurity. And it's easy because I
you're
love
already
all of
doing it.
that side of stuff, live
Yeah,
it and breathe it, and I'm doing it every day. And we've got a right mix of people there across like neurodivergent and
great.
various sexes and LGBTQ, and it's good to have such a mix covered in it and represented from the off, because way
Yes,
too often these things are thought of and added to something after the fact.
yes.
Um so I was kind of intrigued by the idea that we were getting involved from the very beginning,
Yeah, yeah,
um which gives us a great opportunity then
it
to
does.
actually make the difference where it matters and make it to normalize the difference, if that makes sense, to make
Yeah.
it something that happens from the beginning, which is
And
quite exciting.
yeah, and I think there's always been something about education, just generally hanging out with academics, as long as you're talking about their area, their subject matter.
Yeah.
I've always just been, oh, and then what about that? And what about this? And they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they're telling me all this stuff. I didn't have to do a 3-year degree to find out stuff I needed to know. I just needed like an hour's attention of that lecturer. And so I've got I love academia in the sense that it feels way more accepting in general, because it is
Yeah.
about ideas and exploring your capabilities and that idea of imagination and art, and and learning to communicate that in different ways. So education is that piece for me is really helpful and interesting, and seems to have less rules than the world of work.
There's a lot of room for like opinion and growth. And
Yeah,
even while you're saying that, I was thinking, so I get to be a judge this year at the Women in STEM Awards in Ireland. And
nice.
currently I'm working through some of the nominations that came in. And of course, it being STEM, it goes, broader than the
Everywhere.
cybersecurity area. And then I can see the nominations that have gone in for people that are not even necessarily in the category that I'm judging for. And I'm just reading some of them, and it's everything from like med tech to like space tech to tech, and I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my god, I feel like I'm learning so much just from these
quantum.
nominations. It totally appeals to my kind of ooh, and then there's that, ooh, and then there's
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
and I'm having an absolute blast. And I'm like
yeah,
making notes of people's names, going, must talk to them about that. I've got so many questions
yeah. I
afterwards.
mean, it's amazing, isn't it? And it's like, if you think about, I came from hospitality background when I joined Cybersecurity Challenge, and I was so nervous about being made to take minutes at a meeting. I'd never done
Yeah,
it in my whole life. So I sort of signed up and did some freebies for my local canoeing and kayak gang. So I took minutes there, and
yeah,
that was fine. I thought, okay, I've done them once. I know how to do them. Talent management group, all of the professional bodies, all of the certification companies, GCHQ, and yeah, Crest, Block. Anyway, so I'm there, and my first set of minutes are like 12 pages long.
I was just thinking the same thing. I was rubbish at taking notes. I didn't know
Oh,
what to highlight. I didn't know how to narrow anything down. What's actually important
all
in
of
that
the
sentence?
anagrams, all of the letters, what does this mean? What does that mean? Like, just took me nearly a whole month before the next meeting to get them sorted out. But that
Wow.
was fine, and I was off and running. And towards the end of that job, I split my role because they had a startup at Bletchley. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'd like to build the EPQ, so the extended project qualification. And they were like, yeah, but you've got to get City and Guilds Centre accreditation. You've got to build the course. It's got certain, so we use the National Occupational Standards. Well, I was at B-Sides. I'm saying, you'll do, come to Bletchley and let me video you for
Yeah.
this. And that's what we did. We videoed 22 talking heads. Somebody transcribed all of that stuff. I've still got all of those transcriptions on my old laptop. And at one point, I was reading through them and I was thinking, I could easily do a master's in cybersecurity.
That's part of the problem, I think, though,
With
with things
this
like
info,
ADHD. You're like, I can do that, but can I finish it?
with this info, I could never finish it. And but that's what I did. So
Yeah.
I built the first UK extended project qualification certificated by City and Guilds in
I
2
love it.
years after having 80 learners go through it. And my caveat was, teachers know what an EPQ is.
Yeah.
And 14 to 16 or whatever the age group was, the 14 to 18-year-olds, know what an EPQ is. We are
Yeah.
not marketing it as
Mm-hmm.
a 14, like they already know who they are.
Yeah.
But if I'm a career changer and working somewhere in cyber, or I want to go into it, and we have built all of the different areas and we have people talking about what is great about that role, and
Mm-hmm.
then they have things to work through. I said, we can get career changers engaged in this as well.
Yeah.
I said, please do not market it as an education to that age group and those people.
For
And we
anyone.
had 50-50. So we had like 30 or 40 students, but about 50 adults. And
Cool.
some of their workplace write-ups, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So they were taking the stuff into the office and going, right, why are you doing that like that? And what's your incident response? And what's, and
Yeah.
learning how to do a little CTF and all the
I
other
love
stuff.
it.
2 years. Unheard of. I'm not saying I wasn't helped. I was. People really wanted this to take off. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah.
But you need that kind of, again, it's that different viewpoint, that different approach, and that drive to be able to do that. Like, I think when you get like that, you can make yourself the kind of person that's really hard to say no to, because you've covered all of your bases.
Yeah.
You've thought about everything that they might possibly go wrong, or they might possibly ask you to qualify, and you've got all of that in place. And your added advantage of being neurodiverse means you're going to do that quickly, and
Yeah.
it's like, that's a
Don't
situation.
ask me
What can go
how, I
wrong?
just will. Just don't ask me
Exactly.
how, I just will. What's the problem statement? I'll fix it.
Yeah,
Don't
don't
ask
ask me
me
to
how I'm
break it
going to
down.
do it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Or ask me to give you a timeline of my plan. Yeah, good
I
luck
have a
with them.
colleague that used to crack up every time I had to speak publicly somewhere, and she'd be saying to me, "Have you got your presentation ready to talk?" And it could be, let's say I'm talking on Friday and this is Monday, and I'm going, "No." And she's like, "You make me so anxious because you haven't got it ready in time." And I'm like, "In time? It's Friday. This is Monday. Today I'm dealing with Monday's doings, and I might entertain Tuesday's doings, but Friday might
Yeah.
as well be years away." Like, and
Yeah.
if it was really big or really something I hadn't presented before, I might start it on maybe on a Wednesday, but I'd just break out how many slides I need and put some pictures in it. But I would ultimately pull it together kind of on Thursday and run through it
Yeah.
Thursday night. I always drop something in my sister's calendar for the ones I'm really nervous of. And I'm like, listen to this. And then I cry over it and go, oh my God, I should have prepared for this better. And then I deliver it in its most perfect way. Like, I've been doing it for years, on the day it's to be delivered, and it's a routine now. I've just accepted it's a routine, and my sister drinks her cup of tea and she eats her dinner while she's listening to me crying about how I should have prepared it for, knowing full well she's going to ping me the next day and go, well, how did it go? And I was like, it was awesome, it
It
went so
was
well.
great. It was so good. The feedback,
Yeah, it
the
just seems to be my routine now. Like, but my
yeah,
colleague was going,
you're
oh my
so
gosh,
good.
you're going to give me a heart attack. Just like, she'd ask me every day, have you done it yet? I'm like, no. And she just couldn't.
No.
She would prepare for weeks before, which is, the typical way to do it. And there's absolutely the right way. Like, but I'm one of those ones, definitely one of those ADHD'ers that when there's a deadline.
But it's
Yeah.
that thing, isn't it? It's not urgent, and therefore there's just not enough
No.
dopamine. So I
No.
don't act until I'm up against the wall, quite frankly. And that EPQ is currently sitting with Cysec. When I
Yeah.
came back into cyber, I was like, Cysec have it? Really?
Deadly.
Brilliant.
You've made it.
Loved it. Love that fact.
So then, as
So
somebody who's been involved, like you've seen the difference that it makes to kids that are neurodivergent to approach things differently and entertain things differently, and you've seen the difference with regards to people in the workplace being accepted, and you've created training and stuff around that. If there was one more thing that you'd love to be able to sink your teeth into and tackle and change, if you're allowed to, or if you had the resources to, within cybersecurity as an industry, what would it be?
within so more careers fairs. The kids have got nothing. They
Yeah.
need a careers fair. We shouldn't keep having these massive events where they're walking around like going, oh, I've got a red brick degree and I can't
Yeah.
get a job. What am I doing wrong? And nobody wants to talk to them because all the vendors just want to sell.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, anyway, that confuses me. Like, who goes to these things to buy stuff?
Actually, now that you say it, I don't think
I've
I've been
never
at a
bought
career
one.
fair since 2016. I
Yeah,
couldn't even
that's
tell you when I
right.
saw the last one.
Oh,
That
I've
was
tagged
in
you
Ireland.
in
Like,
everything, Jen, because I know that your extensive following means that you'll be able to get it out there. So
yeah,
they only let the students in the afternoon on day 2 of DTX.
no way.
And so I've got LinkedIn profile, help, CV workshop, help,
Brilliant.
and a guy that's got a platform that says he transforms, the lives of 18 months running across his platform. They're work ready for companies. And he's got a cyber game that he's going to play with that. And I
Ooh,
thought, yeah, come along. He's like, but I am making money. I was like, good for you.
that's really cool. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, only
So
you
I
made me
think,
think about it. I'm like, we need more of that, more conversations about what the roles are, what they mean. And in cybersecurity, there's so many different names for often what's the same role as
yep.
well. Like even I've done security engineering, but that's sales engineering traditionally. Solutions engineering, it's called now. It's the same
Okay.
stuff, like, but
Sounds
it's
way
got
more
many different
technical though.
names. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how are they supposed to know?
Yeah. And I think actually there is still a bit of a space in the market for a company like Cybersecurity Challenge. Here's some online games.
Yeah.
People are playing them and then they get invited to speak with sponsors through doing a face-to-face on maybe a Friday
Yeah.
or a Saturday.
Yeah.
And, what we were finding in those early days, way back when, was that kids were like, really? I can get a job doing this stuff?
So
And that's
cool.
before
Like,
the
yeah.
degrees, Jen,
Yeah.
And now we're sort of up and running. We've got the degrees and kids are just, recruiters aren't interested in early careers because it doesn't make them enough money.
Yeah.
It's kind of, so
But they're needed. They're needed everywhere. Like, because,
yeah,
that's just the nature of the business. Everyone else is
yeah.
wanting to get promoted. So
So
we need to get them in.
pipeline. And so little careers fair, see how that goes. Um,
Really
every time
creative. I like
yeah,
that. The more of that,
yeah,
the better.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, thank you so much for
That's all
taking the
right.
time today. And
Anytime.
yeah,
You're
have
great.
fun.
Yeah.
Cheers, Steph.
See you later.